Karen laughed at a black teen's old shoes. His charity sent 500 new pairs. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawn of the country club. Inside, the annual charity gala was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers glittered, reflecting off the polished silverware and the expectant faces of the wealthy patrons. Karen, a vision in a designer gown, glided through the crowd, her presence as sharp and gleaming as the diamond earrings that adorned her ears. She was a force of nature, or so she believed. A whirlwind of perfectly coiffed blonde hair, an impeccably tailored wardrobe, and an opinion on everything. Tonight, the charity was for underprivileged youth, a cause Karen supported in theory. It was good for appearances after all. She donated generously, of course, a sum large enough to secure her a prominent table and a photo opportunity with the guest of honor. But empathy? That was a different story. The guest of honor was a young man named David. He was there to speak about his organization, Soul Hope, which collected and distributed shoes to kids in need. David was a stark contrast to the opulent surroundings. He was tall and lean, with a quiet dignity that commanded respect, even though his own shoes were noticeably worn. They were clean, but the soles were thin, and a small tear was visible near the toe. Karen, ever the social butterfly, found herself near David as he waited to be introduced. A group of women, equally adorned and bejeweled, surrounded him, their voices a mix of polite curiosity and thinly veiled condescension. "So, Mr. David," Karen began, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that masked a barbed undertone, "this soul hope of yours. How quaint. It must be so rewarding to help those less fortunate." David smiled, a genuine warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "It is. Every child deserves a decent pair of shoes. It's about more than just comfort. It's about dignity, about opportunity." One of Karen's companions, a woman named Brenda, with a necklace that could probably fund a small village, chimed in. "Dignity? Really? I mean, they're just shoes. It's not like they're going to solve, well, you know." She trailed off, her eyes darting around, as if afraid to articulate her unspoken thoughts. Karen, however, had no such qualms. She zeroed in on David's feet, her perfectly manicured brow furrowing slightly. "Speaking of shoes, Mr. David," she said, her voice taking on a slightly sharper edge, "are those the shoes you wear for these presentations?" She gestured delicately with a gloved hand, careful not to actually touch anything. David's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but he recovered quickly. "Yes, ma'am. They're my everyday shoes." "Every day?" Karen's eyebrows arched in disbelief. They look like they've seen better days. Don't you think it undermines your message a bit? I mean, you're here talking about providing shoes and yours." She let the sentence hang in the air, the implication clear. A hush fell over the small group. The other women shifted uncomfortably, their smiles faltering. They had witnessed Karen's subtle cruelty before, her ability to dissect and dismiss with a few well-chosen words. It was a talent, a weapon she wielded with practiced ease. David's face remained calm, but a flicker of something, hurt, resignation, passed through his eyes. "These shoes have carried me a long way," he said quietly. "They remind me of where I come from and why I do what I do." Karen scoffed, a short, sharp sound that cut through the silence. "Sentimental value, really? In this day and age, you'd think someone running a charity would have better footwear. It's all about presentation, you know. Image is everything." Brenda, emboldened by Karen's audacity, added her 2 cents. "She has a point, David. If you want people to take you seriously, you have to look the part. Maybe a little less Goodwill and a little more Gucci." She giggled, a high-pitched, brittle sound. The other women joined in, their laughter echoing in the small space. It was a chorus of privilege, a symphony of insensitivity. David stood there, the target of their derision, his face a mask of composure. The moment stretched, thick with tension and discomfort. Finally, the event organizer, a flustered man named Mr. Henderson, rushed over, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "Mr. David," he said, his voice strained, "it's almost time for your speech. If you'd like to—" David nodded, his gaze sweeping over the group one last time. He didn't say anything, but his eyes spoke volumes. He turned and walked toward the stage, his worn shoes carrying him with a quiet dignity that no amount of designer footwear could ever replicate. Karen watched him go, a smug smile playing on her lips. She had won, as she always did. She had put him in his place, reminded him of his perceived inferiority. She had, in her mind, upheld the natural order of things. David's speech was powerful, a raw and honest account of the poverty he had witnessed, the children he had helped, the lives he had changed. He spoke of the transformative power of a simple pair of shoes, how it could restore hope and dignity to a child who had none. He didn't mention Karen or her comments, but his words hung in the air, a silent rebuke to her callousness. Karen, however, remained unmoved. She chatted with her friends, sipped her champagne, and occasionally glanced at her phone, her attention never fully engaged. She clapped politely when David finished, her applause as perfunctory as her interest. The evening wore on, a blur of forced smiles, insincere compliments, and clinking glasses. Karen held court, dispensing her opinions on everything from the hors d'oeuvres to the keynote speaker. She was the queen bee, the center of her own self-constructed universe. As the gala drew to a close, Mr. Henderson approached Karen, a nervous smile on his face. "Ms. Karen," he began, "I have something to show you." He led her to a side room, away from the glittering ballroom. Inside, a large screen displayed a live feed from the event's social media. Mr. Henderson pointed to a particular post, a video that was rapidly gaining traction. It was a video of the exchange between Karen and David. Someone, a guest at the gala, had captured the entire humiliating encounter. The video showed Karen's condescending questions, Brenda's cruel laughter, and David's quiet dignity. It showed the stark contrast between their worlds, the chasm that separated their privilege from his purpose. The comments section was a firestorm. People were outraged, disgusted by Karen's behavior. They called her out for her insensitivity, her arrogance, her blatant disregard for human decency. They praised David for his grace under pressure, his unwavering commitment to his cause. Karen watched in horror as the comments flooded in, each one a dagger to her carefully constructed image. Her face flushed, her hands trembled, and her perfect composure began to crumble. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was Karen. People admired her, envied her. They didn't hate her. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. Who posted this?" Mr. Henderson shifted uncomfortably. It went viral, Ms. Karen. It's everywhere. They're not happy." "Not happy?" Karen's voice rose, her carefully modulated tone replaced by a shrill screech. "Not happy? They should be ashamed of themselves. I was just making conversation." He was the one who couldn't handle a simple question. Mr. Henderson remained silent, his eyes fixed on the screen. The numbers kept climbing, the comments growing more vitriolic. Suddenly, another notification popped up. It was a post from Soul Hope. The post contained a picture of David, standing tall and proud, surrounded by hundreds of pairs of brand new shoes. The caption read, "Thank you to everyone who has supported Soul Hope. Because of your generosity, we are sending 500 new pairs of shoes to children in need. And to the woman who thought my old shoes were a sign of weakness, they are a reminder of my strength." Chamalanabwan. Walk with dignity. Shia Karma, Israel. Karen stared at the post, her world tilting on its axis. 500 pairs of shoes. Because of her cruelty, her insensitivity, her arrogance. What she had intended as a moment of superiority had backfired spectacularly. She had become the villain, the symbol of everything that was wrong with the privileged elite. The backlash was swift and brutal. Karen's social media accounts were flooded with hate mail. Her friends distanced themselves from her, afraid of being tainted by her scandal. Her reputation, once her most prized possession, was in tatters. But the worst was yet to come. The board of the charity, horrified by the negative publicity, asked her to resign. Her name was removed from the list of donors, her photo scrubbed from the website. She was no longer a patron of the arts, a pillar of the community, a respected philanthropist. She was simply Karen, the woman who had laughed at a black teen's old shoes. The irony was almost unbearable. Karen, who had always prided herself on her impeccable image, was now defined by a single, shameful act. She had sought to diminish David, to expose his perceived flaws, but in the end, she had only exposed her own. The following weeks were a living hell. Karen retreated into her mansion, a prisoner of her own making. She stopped going out, stopped answering her phone, stopped even looking in the mirror. She was consumed by shame, by regret, by the crushing weight of her own actions. One day, a package arrived at her doorstep. It was a simple, unassuming box with no return address. Inside, nestled in layers of tissue paper, was a pair of shoes. They were plain, sturdy, and new. A small card lay beside them. It read, "Everyone deserves a second chance. Walk with dignity." Karen picked up the shoes, her fingers tracing the smooth leather. Tears welled up in her eyes, tears of remorse, of humiliation, but also perhaps of something else. A flicker of understanding, a glimmer of hope. She didn't know who had sent the shoes. It could have been David, or someone from his organization, or even a stranger who had been moved by the story. But whoever it was, their message was clear. It wasn't too late to change. Karen spent the next few months in seclusion, away from the judgmental eyes of society. She read, she reflected, she volunteered at a local soup kitchen. She started small, helping out where she could without seeking recognition or praise. It was a slow, painful process, but gradually Karen began to change. She started to see the world through a different lens, to understand the struggles of those less fortunate, to appreciate the value of humility and compassion. She never fully escaped the shadow of her past. The video continued to circulate online, a constant reminder of her moment of infamy. But she learned to live with it, to use it as a catalyst for growth, a reminder of the person she never wanted to be again. Years later, Karen was a different woman. She was still wealthy, still privileged, but she was no longer defined by her wealth or her privilege. She was defined by her actions, by her commitment to making a positive difference in the world. She became a vocal advocate for social justice, using her resources and her influence to support organizations that fought against inequality and discrimination. She even reached out to David, offering a public apology and a substantial donation to Soul Hope. David, to his credit, accepted her apology with grace and forgiveness. He recognized that people could change, that even the most hardened hearts could be softened by remorse and a genuine desire to do better. Karen's transformation was not easy, and it was not complete. She still had moments of doubt, moments of insecurity, moments when the old Karen threatened to resurface. But she had learned to recognize those moments, to confront them, and to choose a different path. Her journey was a testament to the power of redemption, the possibility of change, and the enduring truth that karma, in the end, always has the final word. It was a story of a woman who had once laughed at a black teen's old shoes and who, in the end, learned to walk with dignity herself.